I'd like to welcome Donald Escher to this presentation.
Okay, so I want to get you into graduate school. First, I want to encourage you to realize that it's a great idea to go to graduate school because we have a few myths in particular about the PhD, and I want to kind of dispel those myths and talk about the advantages. So graduate education is associated with, of course, higher income and lower unemployment. But that also includes the PhD, because you'll hear some faculty say, don't get a PhD. You won't get a faculty job. So I actually went to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and I said, what happens to PhDs that don't get faculty jobs? And they say, they're forced to accept an increase in pay. So if you get a PhD and you don't get a faculty job, you'll earn more than if you do get a faculty job. So unemployment rate for PhDs is 2.2%. It's really, really low. It's lower than the unemployment rate for doctors, lawyers, dentists, and veterinarians. So it's absolutely a falsehood to say that PhDs are unemployed. And so their income is robust. A full professor median income is $122,000 a year. Median income or average income for all people with a PhD is $130,000 a year. So that's really robust. So I know that many of you don't, because I'm in Portland, don't care about money at all. So So I thought I would give you some other things that you get with graduate education. You get jobs with more autonomy. That means that you get to plan your day, and you don't have a boss on your shoulder saying, do it this way, do it this way, do it this way. And that increased autonomy is associated with increased subjective well-being. So if you're looking for the kinds of careers where you get to own your world, graduate education is a great thing. I collect weird research on things that influence lifetime earnings. And so let me share some with you. So the biggest one of all, I'm just going to cut to the conclusion, is graduate education. It's bigger than anything else. But there's some of this other stuff that's kind of fascinating. Did you know that if you were a tall male in high school, it's associated with increased income? But if you got tall in college, it has no influence on your lifetime income. So it's in high school where this takes its effect. Height and income are not associated in women, so it's no advantage to you. But here's my favorite one. If you're good looking, it increases your income. But if you're drop dead gorgeous, it actually drops your income below the median. So I've always been really careful just to be super good looking and not slip over into gorgeous. I don't want to damage my income potential by, it's something you got to watch. So, but graduate education trumps all. It really trumps everything. And so I want to encourage you, if you like things like that, to think about going for the graduate degrees. A key to graduate degrees, I think, for many people is to go for free. Would you like me to spend some time today talking about how to go to graduate school for free? Who cares about this a lot? Okay. You'll bring it up in about 40 minutes? Okay, all right. Don't forget. You won't forget? Okay, because you realize if you do forget, you'll cost the people in this room like millions of dollars. And I'm leaving on a plane tomorrow, but you're not. And so it could be a really long year for you if you don't ask that question in about 40 minutes. So, all right, good. So I want to talk about how to go to grad school for free. And so let me just bring up how you get started. And let me find out how many of you are juniors. Juniors. Okay, how many of you are going to graduate this year in the winter or the next spring? Interesting, only a couple of juniors. Who are the rest of you? You heard there was free pizza? What? Are there any freshmen in here? Not a one. Sophomores? Okay, all right. Good luck. No, actually, it's too late for the seniors. I really only came to talk to you. Okay, so I'm going to make some assumptions. I'm going to model everything as if you're going to apply right now. Can we do that? Would that work? Okay, because if you're a sophomore, you won't forget. You'll still remember. But the seniors, they have to worry a little bit. So let's make them worry. Okay, So let's start out with your target, and then I want to talk about geography for a moment. So there's kind of two models for this. Portland State University has a tremendous number of great graduate programs, and then you have a specific interest. So those are two approaches, okay? So let's say that you're interested in what Portland State has to offer, and by the way, you always put your alma mater at the top of your list. So if you're building a list of schools, Portland State's going to be on it anyway. But for some of you, it's like the main thing, okay? So when it's the main thing, you mold yourself to the programs that are at the university. But when you start to look nationwide, and for many of you, I'm going to push a novel concept. Looking nationwide is actually a huge advantage to you if you would like to go to grad school for free. Unfortunately, sometimes people have this weird idea that you'll keep living where you're living and commute, and that will somehow save you money. But it doesn't save you money if you pay tuition. If I could find someone else that would pay you to get the degree, then you could move and you would still be okay. But not only that, Portland State University will love you more if you tell them you have a full funding offer from the University of Texas at Austin. Nothing makes a school love you more than another school giving you a full ride. So if you are here, if your desire is to be right here at Portland State, sometimes applying nationwide is a good thing to do. There's other reasons. In your future, you're going to be a college professor. I can tell it. And so you're going to advise people, and it helps to advise them if you've done a full-on search yourself. So that's some things for you to think about. All right. So what's that? A diaper? That's novel. That's the United States of America, right there. Yeah, here we are, right there. Okay. You can see it now, right? Do I have to draw Maine on there, or are we just going to trust me? I know where it is. Florida is oversized. Do you know how many people live in Florida? I was just there yesterday. There's a lot of people in Florida. I didn't realize that. So I want to encourage you to think about looking nationwide, even if your intention is to stay in Portland or the University of Oregon. And there's a bunch of reasons for this. Let's say that you want to be a college professor in Oregon. The best thing you can do is go away to a highly ranked program and come back because of a rule called the no incest rule and the law of descending prestige. How many of you want to be college professors someday, at some point? Just some of you. Interesting. Okay. What I really want you to do is I don't want you to do that thing where you say, I don't want to go down there because it's hot and people talk funny. Because I used to live in Portland, and I know some of you think that. Okay? But I want to encourage you not to think that, because in fact, it doesn't matter where you go to graduate school, because graduate students are not allowed to go outside. So it doesn't actually matter. It doesn't matter what the weather is outside. You're not going to be outside. Your future is a windowless room at 68 degrees for years. And so, just get used to that idea and settle into it and think about looking nationwide. Okay, so there's two models. If you want to look locally, you're really going to have to mold yourself to the programs that are available locally. I'll just pretend you're a history person. Okay, so maybe you have this interest in a very particular area of history, but if you're going to mold yourself to the local programs that are within a commute of this spot, you got to go look at what they're good at and then mold yourself to them. But if you look nationwide, you can have some dedication to your topic. Okay, so let's start out with our topics, and I just need to know what it is you want to do. And so I want you to arbitrarily decide, even if you came in this room undecided, or you heard there was free pizza and now that's too embarrassing to stand up and walk out. So I want to know what your target, and the target usually is like a subject and a degree, so that's like a PhD in English literature, but then I want to know more. I want to know what period of English literature, which authors or what school of thought. And so don't tell me you want to be in organic chemistry. Tell me you're interested in enzymes and proteins and mechanisms for protein folding and bench lab techniques for protein cutting. I want some focus. And so is this working for you?
It's fine.
Are you developing some focus?
Okay,
good. Don't tell me you want to be law. Tell me you want to do, bankruptcy law. Tell me exactly what you want. Don't tell me you want to go to medical school. Tell me you want to be a pediatric oncologist or endocrinologist, which it took me years to learn how to say endocrinology. It's a weird word, don't you think? Okay, so are you picking your target? Yes, Professor? You got it? Okay, go. What do you got?
Organizational
Ooh, I like that. I like that. OB. A friend of mine is a doctor, and one of his colleagues killed a young woman that was a patient of theirs, and they had to bring in an OB-IO type person, and that person made $15,000 a day to help these doctors solve their problem. That's pretty good. So that's his future, you guys, $15,000 a day. That's good. All right, so test. I want you to be specific. So don't tell me you're interested in anthropology. I want you to be able to tell me you're interested in cultural anthropology. But what would make me super excited is if you could tell me you're interested in cultural anthropology of Native Americans in urban settings post-1925, in particular intertribal males living communally and working together in construction in Chicago. A narrow target is a gift to you if you're going to look nationwide. It's not so much if you're going to look right in the state of Oregon. If you're going to look nationwide, it's actually critical. So did you pick?
Oh, yeah.
What is it?
Here's the mark. I am interested in, and I'm going to go from large to small, gender studies with a focus on non-binary teenagers and solving the problem of homelessness in the United States.
I like that. Give her a hand. There you go. Hang on to that. I want you to pick a volunteer. Do you know how to find volunteers? They try to avoid your gaze. So anyone trying to avoid your gaze is definitely a volunteer.
How about you?
Okay. Do I say my name or just?
However you want to do it. You're in charge.
I'm Pablo.
You have the
everyone.
microphone.
Hello, I do have the microphone. So I'm looking into going into music business administration, and I want to work for the Grammy Academy.
Okay, awesome. Okay, here's what I want all of you to do, because one of the things I know about some of you is that you're like secret thinkers. You like do all your thinking at home, and when you're walking across campus, you try to act like you don't think at all. And so you really don't want people to know that you're a big thinker. But I want you to act like a scholar. And scholars look people in the eye and describe their interest and their scholarship and how they came to that conclusion and what they want to do with it. So I want you all to act like scholars. So here's your big opportunity. If you ask your neighbor first, you get to go second. Find a neighbor and say, what specifically are you interested in? Go. Okay. Okay, Tess, what did she say?
She's going into, oh gosh, I forget how to say it, but it's like art history restoration from the Renaissance period.
Art history from the Renaissance period and restoration of art. Go. What's his target?
Well, he already told all of
What's
us.
your target? What's your target?
I'm here because my daughter went home sick throwing up, and she didn't want to throw up all over you, so I'm here taking notes for her.
What does she want to do?
She wants to be a high school health career counselor, or teacher.
Okay, awesome. Okay, and you've got a mic, so I can't argue with you. All right, so next, after you have a target, you build a list. First thing on the list is what? I already told you. PSU, okay? Next on the list is you go see your faculty and tell them what you're interested in. You guys, this is not a solo project. It's actually a deeply faculty-involved project. So, Skype with your faculty. Tell you, hey, Dr. Wilson, I can come by your office hours and we could Skype. I want your help to build a list of grad programs, or just to discuss my grad school plans. That would be great. And then here's a couple of things you might want to know about. GradTrek.com is a new database designed by some faculty. It has 44,000 graduate programs in it. I like it a lot and I respect it a lot. Hot tip, don't list a state. If you don't list a state, it will give you a nationwide list. If you list a state, it's going to think you're not very serious and just give you a little local list. Okay, and Petersons.com has every accredited graduate program in the United States in it. So Petersons is a very robust tool to find grad programs. I like Grad Trek better, even though Petersons is one of my publishers. There's some books that you need to know about. How many med school people we got in here? Med school. Okay, you need to know about the MSAR, which is the Medical School Admissions Requirements in the United States and Canada, more commonly known as the MSAR. How many psychology people in here? Psychology? Okay, there's always a lot of psych people. You need an APA book called Graduate Study in Psychology. Boring title, great book. It has the admit rates by specialization area. How many clinical psychologists do I have in here? Clinical. Okay, everybody go, aww. You want to know why, right?
I know why, because I'm going hopefully into clinical psychology.
Yeah. Well, I want you to get that book because it tells the admit rate by each program. And if you want to get some places with a reasonable admit rate, about the only thing you can do is go for the PsyD, which is much more reasonable admit rates, or a new program that's not APA certified yet, and it will be APA certified before you finish your doctorate. Okay, so, what? I'm sorry, what? Oh, any new program, any new doctoral program in clinical psychology. Oh, okay. Does that make sense? That's not been APA certified yet. That's right. Does that make sense? Okay. So the reason I should explain why. This is the hardest thing to get into in the United States. That's why we all went admit rates in clinical psychology are often 5%, 4%, 3%, 2%, and 1%. For perspective, Harvard Medical School has a 3% admit rate. So what these 5 people are trying to do is harder than getting into Harvard Medical School. Go again. So I'm just saying. Okay, good. Okay, so how many schools do you look at? If you're looking nationwide, if you're going to apply to a PSU and call it a day, I'm going to let you do that. But if you're going to look nationwide, I'm going to give you some numbers. I need you to look at 20 and apply to around 9 or 10 for the PhD, 4 or 5 or 6 for the master's. If you're going to do this, if you're applying to law school, how many lawyers do we have in here? Law schools, law. Not a lawyer in here? What has happened to America? You guys, everybody used to want to be a lawyer. Then they took a look at what lawyers do for a living. Did you know that 70% of lawyers would like to get out of the law and 60% would not recommend the law to a young person? But what's concerning to me is that 10% that want out but would recommend that you get in. What's up with them? Have you thought about that? What's up with them? I think they're trying to replace themselves so they can escape. A normal number for law is 12. The pre-meds, normal number of medical schools is 15. Okay, master's degree, 4, 5, 6. It's really cutting it a little thin to just apply 4 places, you guys. I mean, do this right. Do it one time and do it right. And I would teach you how to do it right, but do it one time and do it right is my recommendation. So that's your list. Now we're going to talk about deadlines, and then we're going to talk about the content of your application, grades and scores and stuff like that. Would it entertain any of you if I taught you how to make your grades look higher? Yeah. It's my hobby. I can teach you how to do this. It's totally fun. So I'll do it in a minute. Okay. All right. So this is a little complicated. Okay. So bear with me here. This. What is that? What is that? A what? A baby's head? Oh my gosh, you're right. I never saw that before. Wow. That's a calendar, okay? And that right there is January 1. And so this is the summer down here. This is the summer. So when do you apply? Okay, so when are deadlines? Deadlines for the PhD are very typically December, middle of December, some in January. Frankly, some are also in November and October. So this is happening right now for the PhD. Master's deadlines are all over the map, everything from the middle of December to the middle of April. So, there's master's deadlines are even in here. So if you're applying to top law schools, which we have nobody, how about MBAs? We got any MBAs in here? Okay, so MBAs run either an official or a de facto rolling admissions. So they'll have an open date, which is usually like September 1, and a closing date, I'm just making this up, like December the 15th. My recommendation is to apply in the first third of the cycle if you're after the top MBA programs. If you're not after the top MBA programs, you just have to be ahead of the deadline. Now, here's what here's the I don't know how to put this. Let me give you some advice. Shoot for 10 days early because that's the minimum, okay? Everybody needs to be 10 days early. But let me share something with you about being a STEM student. And of course, STEM is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. If you're in STEM, it matters to apply a little bit earlier if you can. Now, if you're flat-footed and you came in here today to find out how to do this, you got to turn your life upside down and get these apps in. So I'm going to be pushing that concept to you today. Those of you who are applying this year, you have plenty of time to do this, but only if you leave this room and start doing stuff. You don't have another 10 days to think about it. You actually don't have another 4 days to think about it. Is that too stressful or is that okay?
It's tough love. I like it.
Tough love, it's okay though, right? I'm pointing out that it's perfectly doable. Okay, so how early is the correct amount of early? 10 days is a minimum because if you mess up, you can still beat it. In STEM, I would shoot for more earlier. Okay. Okay, so that brings up a series of things that you have to get done if you're applying this year, okay? If you have not taken the GRE yet, you need to go out of this room and into a computer and go to gre.org and sign up to take the GRE about 32 days from now. You'll be totally on time if you do this. You won't be late at all. And 32 days is more than sufficient prep time. Ask me, Don, what is the best way to prepare for the GRE? Oh, here's a microphone.
What is the best way to prepare for the GRE?
I'm so glad you asked that at this time. I will tell you the best way to prepare for the GRE. Here's what GRE itself says. It takes 8 to 24 hours to prepare for the GRE. Less than 8 hours of prep, you couldn't possibly be ready. More than 24 hours of prep, and you have a flatline response to your effort, okay? So that's the sweet spot, 8 to 24. I'm kind of paranoid, so I would say 10 to 30. Let's just push it up a little bit. Okay, now if you make your appointment 30 days out, you have more than sufficient time to properly prepare for the GRE. You should not feel that you cannot do this because you can. Here's what we know about preparing for the GRE. People who take full-length practice tests score higher than people that study that same amount of time but don't take full-length practice tests. Full-length practice tests are critical for your performance because it teaches you how to persevere through mental fatigue. Mental fatigue is something that young people today are not used to pushing through. But on the GRE, you can't say, I need a break. I'm going to go outside for a little while until I feel better. That doesn't work, okay? They're like, no. Okay, so I want you to take full-length practice tests. And then the other thing that you get out of full-length practice tests is time management. Okay, you got a certain number of questions, and you've got to answer them all. The GRE penalizes you rather brutally for not finishing question sets. So you're going to take 3 full-length practice tests. In my opinion, that's a minimum number, and then the 4th GRE that you take will be the official one. And so when you take 3 full-length practice tests, you're going to have a pretty good idea of what score it is that you're going to make. So more hot tips. Study the GRE, don't study for the GRE. Very subtle difference. Don't study the content, study the test and how it works. Spend your time and energy on learning how the GRE works. The GRE has a certain set of standard tricks that they try to use, okay? And once you learn them, they don't work on you anymore. So I'm going to encourage you to study how the GRE works and spend your energy on that more than on relearning complex fractions and geometry. Okay, so those are a few things about taking the GRE. Yes, Professor?
Is there a specific resource that you could refer us to? That would
Yes. Go to gre.org and download all their free study prep materials because those are the gold standard because they're using real retired GRE questions. And then go to magoosh.org, magoosh.org. No, it's magoosh.com. Magoosh.com. Yeah, I can. Yeah, I can. Yeah, I can do it. I swear. Okay. Magoosh.com. gre.org. And then I want you to look at some of the books that come with either access to an online version of their own fake test, or they come with CDs that you can play on your computer. So I like Princeton Review, Kaplan. Kaplan's coming here next month. And so you can look at those books as well. But the main thing is to use the look and feel of the test every time you practice. And you can get this stuff all the way down to your phone, you guys. So you can practice while you're in line for Starbucks. You can practice taking the GRE all the way down to there. Okay, I will tell you the world's best way to do it, but you don't have time if you're ready in 30 days. But here's the world's best way. Form a small study team with people who are not like you. Okay, so you're a math major. He needs to be a poet. She's a chemist, and he's a political scientist. Why do you do this? Because people teach each other correct ways to take the test. And for example, if you ever see anyone doing long division on the GRE, it's an English major. It's not a math major. Math majors simply eliminate the wrong answers by estimating. But see, if you put a math major and an English major on the same team, she'll teach him how to take the thing. Am I making sense? And then if you get an engineer and an English major on the same team, you know how engineers read? Engineers read every syllable of every word, including all the articles and every introductory phrase. And then they can't finish the question set because they're still reading the prompt when they run out of time. And the English major will say, you can't do that. You got to skim it, then read the questions and go back. So that's what you get by a mixed team. So if you want the top score for the minimum amount of time, form a small study team, study Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and take full-length practice tests, and you'll be ready to take the test in about 3 weeks and 1 day. Yes, doctor?
So I did an MBA program, and I was really annoyed when I found out that they would have accepted the GRE.
Yes.
Matt, are you finding that more and more programs will accept the GRE?
The last I checked, there were about 250 business schools that will take the GRE. And so they're cannibalizing the GMAT. And so my recommendation is take both and turn in the one that you score the highest percentile on. That's my recommendation. And, you know, they still have the Miller Analogies test, but about the only people that take it are some obscure psychology programs. And then for those of you going to law school, there's none of you in here, but that's the LSAT. And for you medical people, that's the MCAT. Here's the bad news for the medical people. You need to take the MCAT prep courses because students with a 4.0 in the sciences are taking the MCAT prep courses. So no matter how good you are, you have to sit through that because that's just the competitive world of pre-medical preparation. So my recommendation is that you do it too. Okay, any questions about the GRE, for example? Or, yes, Professor? Yeah, if they don't require it, take it, and if you do well, then you share the score with them. And if you don't do well, you don't turn it in. And the same thing with the subject test. Subject test is optional a lot of places. So if you want to be, for example, a teaching assistant, usually they want you to take that subject test. But you can take the subject test, and if you do well, you can turn it in. But there is one little small problem. The grad schools are now asking for all your scores. And so they make you sign something that says you've turned in all your scores. This is to combat the fact that GRE will let you black out certain scores. I don't know if you guys know this, but they have a thing called Score Select now. So you can take the GRE and not send it to schools, and then if you like it, you can send it, or you can send it selectively. Okay, so the schools are combating that by saying that you're swearing to have provided all of your scores. It's an arms race. It's always an arms race. Yes, Professor?
That would be my question, is what happens if you do poorly on the MGRE? You just don't test well.
Well, I could teach you right now how to make your scores look higher. So I'm going to do it. Okay, this is an essay item. Okay, now if you have not taken the GRE yet, my recommendation is that you make your scores actually higher, and then you won't have to do this. And the way to make your scores actually higher is to prepare properly that 10 to 30 hours and really be ready for it. I find that a lot of the people that say they have test anxiety are the same ones who don't prepare very much. They have a different problem, but they call it test anxiety. So what I always say to them, could you breathe while you were taking the test? And they say, well, yeah, I could breathe. Then I say, you don't have anxiety. You have a lot of problems, but you do not have anxiety. Because if you have anxiety, you cannot breathe. Okay, so here's how you make your scores look higher. I'm going to give you a series of models. However, if it's not true, don't say it, okay? I'm just going to put that on the table. Concerning my GRE scores, you may not be impressed. However, I have had top grades at PSU, and I also had a very weak SAT score, but yet I was a top 10% student in high school. I have established that these types of tests do not predict my academic performance. Please use my grades as an indicator of the type of work I will be doing for you, and disregard these tests, which have proved to be inaccurate in my case. Okay? Okay, I'm a big fan of fighting back a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so I can do the sections and pieces as well. Here we go. Concerning the quant section of my GRE, I was surprised it was not much higher. I earned an A in calculus, an A in research methodology, and an A in statistics. It's obvious that I have no problem with quantitative reasoning. I'm not sure where this low score came from, but there was a lot of geometry on the GRE that I took, and I have not had geometry since the 9th grade. Frankly, we use a lot of geometry in advanced statistics courses. You see what you're doing? You're denigrating the test slightly, gently, obliquely, and providing alternate evidence. Concerning the verbal section of the GRE, I was surprised not to score much higher. I've always been praised for my academic writing. Okay, but I'm a very careful and contemplative composer of academic works, often writing with a thesaurus in one hand and a dictionary in the other. I found this to be a very artificial way to represent my skills with the English language. Furthermore, I looked it up, and there's 635,000 words in, it's actually 135,000, isn't it? How many words are in English?
No linguists in this room.
Really? It's a lot. I think it's 635. There's 635,000 words in English, and I think every single one of them was on the GRE that I took. It's obvious that we don't need this robust a vocabulary to do excellent academic work in. Name your field. Okay? 1.2 million, 1.25 million. So thank you. Thank you. I'll just say over 1 million. I was going to say over 1 million. And so you fight back, you guys, and you say, please look at my writing sample as an example of the type of work I will be doing with you, and I think that your concerns will be assuaged. Okay, still with me? Here's another one. Concerning my GRE score, I was surprised it was not much higher. I scored much better on several practice exams. I would be happy to retake the test if it is important to you. You offered to retake it, but you don't. Okay? If they say you have to retake it, then you retake it. But until they say that, you just let that live right there. Okay, so I want you to sign up for the GRE tonight, 30 days out, and get on with this, all of you that are applying this year. And you guys, on those schools where it's optional, take it anyway and see how you do. Okay, it's a rite of passage. Everybody has to suffer through the GRE. Suffer a little bit for your art. Okay, so, all right, so we're back to the calendar, okay? There's another thing you got to worry about, and that's your letters of recommendation. So here's a problem. Faculty want 4 weeks to write a letter of recommendation. Everything kind of happens like right now is what I'm trying to get at. So you have 4 weeks to do these letters of recommendation and work with faculty. So I'm going to teach you a system for that. Would that be okay? Okay, so don't ask for letters of recommendation. That creates the trouble right there. Make a list of 5 faculty and email all of them. Dr. Wilson, I would love it if you would have some time to discuss my graduate school plans with me this week. It's, you know, the season is pending, so I'd like to get at this right away. I can come to your office hours, or we can Skype at your convenience. Please, may I have an appointment? Okay, so you do that tonight, but you do it to 5 faculty. You only need 2 or 3 letters. So you're going to actually audition them to see if they're going to be good recommenders for you. But I want you in more faculty offices anyway. I want you to have faculty advice and counsel, so I'm pushing you to do it. So you're in somebody's office and the letters of recommendation do not come up on their own. That's a warning sign. Okay, if you're in their office and they don't bring it up, there's a problem right there. So maybe you have to bring it up, but when it comes up, okay, I want you to ask a very particular structure question. Dr. Wilson, would you be comfortable writing a strong letter for me for graduate school? The key phrase is comfortable writing a strong. You're literally asking for strong letters, and that gives the faculty member a lot of room to say no. Okay, so I'm going to say some things, and you tell me if it means yes or no. Okay, ready? We only had that one class, and it was last year. I have a lot of advisees this semester. Gosh, it's a very busy semester. Okay? I don't like you, actually. That means no as well. Perhaps someone else knows you better. No. Well, yeah, I guess I could do that for you. No, that means yes. You guys, sometimes you got to compromise. That may be all you get. So if they say something like that, I want you to do something that's hard for undergraduates to do. I want you to look them right in the eye. Now, try not to look like this. It'll disturb them. You know, and they have a button under their desk now, a little sign that says security. So don't look like this, exactly like this. Just look at them and say, okay, great. What will you be able to say about me? And that gives you a chance to negotiate the contents of the letter. And I'm going to give you a portfolio in just about 14 seconds that you take in there. But you can negotiate the contents of the letter. You can say, Dr. Wilson, I know that you went to the University of Chicago. I really want to go to the University of Chicago. Could you mention your connection with Chicago and my great desire for the University of Chicago in your letter? Or you might say, Dr. Wilson, could you make sure that you bring up that I'm the sole reason we have that new chemistry building? And I would really appreciate it if you wouldn't say anything at all about that unfortunate fire. Thanks. Here's your portfolio. You're going to take your transcripts printed out. It's a courtesy to the faculty member. You're going to take a resume or a CV. CV stands for curriculum vitae. That's an academic style of resume. So a resume or a CV. A graded work sample. Okay, something you've done, a lab, a paper, a write-up, an article, whatever. My recommendation is use red Sharpie, write A+, this is excellent work, and then just turn it in and try to make it, they won't remember. Okay, I'm teasing, of course. And do you know what happened to me? I was at the University of Tennessee, and I got up the next day and was, going to the airport, and I had the student newspaper, and I opened it up, and it said, Don Asher recommends that you write A+ on your paper before handing. No! With no sense of irony. They just put the suggestion in there. It's like I was serious. Oh, my goodness. I tell you, those students, I'm going to pick on the University of Tennessee. I was in my office one day, and the phone rang. And it's this guy I knew from Tennessee. He said, hey, Don, when you were on our campus last fall, did you tell students the standard tip for a letter of recommendation was $50? I said, I don't know, Bob, maybe. He said, I just got $50. No. Thanks. It was a joke. For some student at Tennessee wrote it down, probably that same guy who turned me into the newspaper. So I'm still working on the portfolio. You also provide a draft of your statement of purpose and your list of schools. It's an annotated list of schools. Here's what I like about Chicago. Here's what I like about the University of Texas. Here's what I like about UCLA. So it's an annotated list of your target schools. It's not just a raw list. Are you with me? Okay, next point. When you ask for these letters of recommendation, this is a very strong suggestion, very strong. Ask the faculty member to hit your all-in date. Your all-in date is your target date to turn everything in. If you don't get an agreement about them hitting your all-in date, they're going to wait till the deadline, okay? And that's just standard procedure, okay? So the school's going to say the deadline's December 15th. We got to have this. So here you did all your work and turned everything in like 2 weeks early. Nothing's going to happen until your whole portfolio's in. So this is an important concept. Dr. Wilson, my all-in date is let's just pick something. It's Thanksgiving. Everything will be done by the Monday after Thanksgiving. Are you on that? Can you do that too? And when she says, yeah, I can do that too, then you've got her, okay? So she's going to own your all-in date. Am I making sense? Okay, what's the bugging system? The bugging system is half the distance to the goal. So it's not a favor to a faculty member not to bug them. You do bug them, okay? So if it's like 4 weeks out, you bug them at 2 weeks, then you bug them at 1 week, then you bug them at 3.5 days, and then frankly, after that, you just kind of follow them around. Dr. Wilson, how's that letter coming? I'll just be standing here if you have any questions. I'll be right here.
I hate to tell you this.
Yeah.
Portland State has updated their letter of recommendations that's now in a survey.
Yeah.
So that you go in and you just say, how well this person has done with this concept. And then you have a little section now
Yeah.
to go in and put more information about that person.
Interesting.
So basically, it's
Interesting.
What's that? It's like it's an email.
So the faculty member receives this email and it just says, click these boxes and fill this in?
That's right.
Yeah.
The person is to
Yeah.
whether you agree or strongly disagree at this point.
Interesting. Okay.
They've changed it to going out and finding those letters.
Even if there's a little box that takes the same amount of characters as a tweet, you get some control over what goes in there. I was just at a conference where a faculty member described the shortest letter of recommendation he ever got. He said he got a letter of recommendation. This is the entire letter. Bill Jones took Introduction to Philosophy from me last semester. He made a B. You got to get better than that. Okay, so when the letters are turned in and you confirm that, you owe the faculty member a handwritten note of appreciation and a modest office gift, not $50 like that student wrote down. Okay, when I say a modest office gift, it's something you can get at Target for about $8. Okay, so I'm not asking for a lot. As a matter of fact, it's wrong to give them something grand. It's certainly wrong to give them $50. So something modest. One more thing. At the end of the year, you owe them what's called a full report. So at the end of the year, if you apply 10 places, you have to tell them where you applied, where you were admitted, where you were funded, who waitlisted you, what people said to you, who changed the offer when you asked for it, and who never responded at all. That's a full report. It's really a table. Here's the places I applied, and here's what happened.
2 questions. The work sample, should it be one for that instructor?
Yeah. Each portfolio is specific to a particular faculty member.
And then does a gift card work for the thank you?
No, it doesn't. A gift card smells like a bribe. So instead of getting them a gift card at Starbucks, go buy them a coffee cup at Starbucks for even less money. You can't get out of it with a gift card. That's letters of recommendation. Letters of recommendation really matter. If you'll spend some time with faculty, you're going to get a lot better letters of recommendation, okay? This is an important part. Those of you who are juniors, you get letters of recommendation by haunting your faculty in the junior year. So if you're a junior, it's a great year. It's too late for the seniors. They have to do it this way. So that's the method, okay? So now, do you want to talk about more secrets about the calendar, or do you want to talk about grades and essays? What's on your mind? Grades and essays? Okay.
How to go for free?
We don't have enough time to talk about that anymore.
It hasn't been 40 minutes yet. I have a timer on. Takes her duty very seriously.
She better. I'll do grades and essays, and then we'll talk about money, okay? That work? And we'll finish right on time, and then we'll shift into Q&A. Okay, first thing I want to say about grades is never self-select out of applying to a graduate program. I see students do this. They're like, oh, I can't go there. My grades are so-so. Don't do that. Make them reject you. You guys, I want you to embrace rejection. If you do this correctly, you're going to get some rejections. So get over yourself and get out there and get busy getting rejected, okay? I have some weird research that shows that the highest ranked school that rejects you is a better indicator of your lifetime income than the school you actually attend. So go out and get rejected by Harvard, Princeton, Caltech. So why do I want you to do that? Because it sharpens your game. Okay, if you do a reasonably good job of applying to those places, you're going to do a good job everywhere else. And so, but also you get in. I'm on this side of this process, you guys. You do not know the things that I know. I know a student with a 2.8. I ran into him a month ago at Cornell. I'm giving a lecture just like this one, and he comes running up the aisle at a break, and he says, Don, I want to talk to you. And I was like, okay. He was a big guy too, coming right at me. And he said, I'm here at Cornell. I've been here 2 years. I'm doing really well. I said, okay. And he said, I have a GPA of 2.8, and when I applied, you told me what to do, and I did it. And now I'm fully funded for the PhD here, and after 2 years of classes, my GPA is 3.7. This is where I belong. I'm thriving. I'm so excited, and I wouldn't have done it if you didn't force me to do it. I said, what do you think was the key to your success? He said, I wrote handwritten letters to faculty saying how their research and my research were very well aligned and how fascinated I was with the work they were doing. Okay, so stop self-selecting out and get busy applying, you guys. After years of research, I have discovered that the students who are admitted and fully funded are among the ones who apply. I can prove it. Okay, so how do you talk about your grades? If you need to talk about your grades, first of all, you get your transcripts out and sit down with your academic advisor and say, what would my GPA be if you look at it this way? What would be my GPA if you look at it that way? And you start to look at your GPA in multiple dimensions. Take out your worst semester. Take out your worst year. Take out your freshman year. Take out the grades you made before you declared your current major. All of those are going to result in a different GPA. You want me to model this? Just say yes. Yes. My GPA after the freshman year, I had some trouble adjusting to college, but then I did learn how to study and knuckle down. My GPA after the freshman year is 3.7 in the major. Now, if you listen to that really carefully, I didn't just get rid of the freshman year. I got rid of the freshman year and reported only my GPA in the major. If you do this, you can really change numbers, you guys. You can change a 2.8 into a 3.4. A 3.4 is competitive everywhere. A 2.8 is a big challenge. Are you with me? Okay, you want more? Okay, my GPA, except for the second semester of the sophomore year, when I had some problems, which are now fully resolved, is 3.6 in the major. Did I say what went wrong with the second semester of the sophomore year? I didn't even tell them. Okay, my GPA, since my learning disability was diagnosed and I had some accommodation, has skyrocketed. Last semester, it was a 4.0. Report your GPA in these models, and then due to a phenomenon that the psychologists know called priming. Okay, people now see you as a 3.7 major, a 4.0. It's in their brain. They can't get it out. And it works. It's really, really, really effective. The weird thing about priming is it works even with smart people. And what's super fascinating about priming, it even works on people that know you're doing it. So it works. Yes, doctor. Yeah, that's a good question. If they have a question, it's usually 8C. Is there any reason that your grades and scores do not reveal your true potential as a scholar? You put it on 8C. But I recommend you put it in your essay. And I'm going to be blunt. If you're applying in STEM, you put it right near the top. Don't fool around. Put it like paragraph 2. Concerning my GPA, you may be concerned. However, I call your attention to the fact that my GPA has gone up every year. My GPA in the major last year was 3.8. Some of you that are walking around with a 3.2, you haven't done the analysis. You don't realize what the patterns are. Now, this fixes everything that can be isolated. If you have a whole series of grades that are kind of so-so, it doesn't work. And you can't, and the reason that your grades are not perfect needs to be, what's the right word? People have to have a sympathetic response to it. So you can't say my grades would be much higher if I weren't so lazy and I didn't smoke so much pot. Because that's like an ongoing issue with you. And if you would just stop doing that, you can say, since I gave up pot, my GPA has gone way up. Last semester, it was 3.9 in my major.
So I'd like to know how I would go about saving this. Okay, so I have a 4 point for the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
But before I started that was my college experience like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And I only had like a 2.8. So
you can see that when I first went to college, I was not particularly serious about it. When I came back to college, I considered it a real privilege to be here. My GPA over my last tenure as a student is 4.0.
Yes. Okay.
That's what you do. Yeah. A lot of you, if you went into the military or, you stopped out and came back, that's a very common pattern. They only care about the second set, with the exception of medical school, which never forgives, with the exception of law school, which never forgives, but everyone else forgives. Okay, all right. Now, I want to do some essay stuff, and then we are going to talk about your concern. Did your alarm go off yet? Okay. But you didn't say anything. All right. She's smooth. All right, so concerning the essays, first of all, there's a lot of different styles, so I'm going to give you some tips, but I want you to realize you need to go sit down with faculty in your department and say, can I look at successful essays from students from the past? That's standard procedure. If your department does not have successful essays from students from the past, you need to talk to them because they're supposed to be collecting those, okay? That's part of what they should be doing. But I'll give you a few tips. If you're headed for the PhD, or any program where you're going to work one-on-one with a faculty member, then you need to mention faculty by name in the statement of purpose. So normally you mention 3 or more faculty by name. And you mention context. You don't just say, I like Drs. Wilson, Lee, and Wu. You actually have to provide context. You read their book, you saw their TED video, you corresponded with them, you met them at a meeting, they gave a lecture at PSU. So you have to provide some context. Would you like to hear the second best opening line in the history of graduate admissions? In my frequent correspondence with Drs. Wilson, Lee, and Wu, I've come to discover that my academic interests and your academic program perfectly align. Okay, what's the power in that? You're corresponding with 3 different faculty members. Some little junior low-grade human being cannot axe you out of the list until they go talk to all 3 of those faculty members. You have circumvented the first cutoff by using this technique. Are you with me? Just say yes. Okay, but also you establish fit and match, and you've established that you're corresponding with the faculty. That's a high-end performance. Yes, doctor?
Is it okay to send those letters to the faculty? Because what I was, like my advisor explained to me, was that it might not be good to put faculty name in your personal statement, just in case the faculty's like, oh, I'm too full for that year, or I don't have room to have, students to come in, or,
What's your field?
epidemiology.
Okay. I understand where your faculty member is coming from, but my recommendation is that you do mention faculty when you're applying for the PhD, but you do the following formula: specificity plus flexibility equals admission. So you need both specificity, and then you also need flexibility. So these faculty are particularly attractive to me, but of course I understand that as I progress through my coursework, other things may arise that are more fascinating. So you provide both. Yes.
Do you suggest this for medical school admissions as well?
No, don't never do this for medical school admissions. Never do it for law school. Never do it for business school, and don't do it for most professional schools, which includes public policy, public administration, public health, communications, international relations, social work. You don't do it for those fields. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up.
Why no business school?
Because the faculty, it has to do with, you do it for English. The faculty have a set curriculum in those fields, and so you don't end up working shoulder to shoulder with somebody for years. But in epidemiology, you do. So you absolutely do. Fit and match are about the faculty, the curriculum, and the location. Okay, so I spoke briefly about the faculty. You got to take apart what they say about their curriculum and talk about how that matches your interest. The highest form is they're really good at what you want to be really good at. That's fit and match. That's a match. Fit and match trump grades and scores. If your grades and scores are not perfect, you got to go looking for fit and match because it's more powerful anyway. Location. Location's very interesting. If the school is far away or they've never heard of your school, you need to mention the location of the school. And this is actually fraught with danger because there's more ways to do it wrong than ways to do it right. Okay, so if the school is like in New Mexico, that's fairly far away. So you have to find some right way to talk about New Mexico. Like I'm interested in continuing my studies at the University of New Mexico in Albuquerque. Some years ago, on a whim, I bought an entire apartment full of Southwestern motif furniture, which has been quite out of place here in the Pacific Northwest. I look forward to fitting in better with my peers. I was in a guy's office in New York City, and he said, make sure you tell students they have to mention New York City in the application or we won't let them in. And I looked at him and I said, so it's a requirement for admission? He said, yes. I said, what do they have to say? He said, I don't care, they just have to mention New York City. I said, so I love New York? He said, that'll be fine. I said, why you have this attitude? And he said, because we've learned over the years that when people don't mention New York City, they haven't really thought this through. And we're in the heart of Manhattan. And if you don't mention it, we're not going to take you. That's it. No exceptions. I said, what about people from New Jersey? And he looked at me if I might be not too bright. And he said, especially people from New Jersey. It's most important for them to say that. So faculty, curriculum, location, fit and match. Also, let's talk about styles for just a moment. There's a range of styles, and I cannot talk enough about this, but they're all in this book, okay? You can get this book for as little as a penny from Amazon.com, because after people get into graduate school, they sell them back for a penny. Okay, it's Graduate Admissions Essays. I want you to get it because it has the range of styles. Okay, so over here is like organic chemistry, biochemistry, bench biology. So this is going to be heavy lab sciences, mathematics. This is going to be not anything personal. There's nothing personal. You don't know who the person is. You don't know their gender. You don't know how they got interested in this. It's atemporal. And so this is, what are your skills and what are your interests? That's what's happening over here. Right here is field biology, which begins to bridge over into more humanness. How you got interested in something might be pertinent and germane. You might tell a story in your essay. That starts to be okay. Then humanities, right here, it's not just the discipline, but how do you engage with the discipline starts to be important. And so then over here is medical school. There needs to be medicine in all applications to medical school. There needs to be actual medicine. And they also changed their criteria. You must have interacted with regular humans, like working class people, okay? And you have to have touched them, okay? You can't say, I saw some working class people one time. That's not going to cut it. You have to say, I touched working class people, and I'm comfortable with that. And I'm actually not joking. It seems like I'm joking, but I'm not. And over here is law school. You can write anything you want when you apply to law school for your essay, as long as the writing is really crisp and standard business English. So you can write about what you did for your summer vacation last year, perfectly acceptable. I went to Chile to climb glaciers last summer, which is winter, and that's when you climb glaciers, it's on the shoulders of winter. So I thrust my ice axe into the glacier when I felt a sudden jerk on my safety rope, and I looked around and I saw my friend Paul down in the crevasse, his very life in my hands. And then I remembered, I'm going to law school. I don't need friends. Isn't that brutal? I know. Okay, the final person to review your statements of purpose needs to be a faculty member. You can't, and I love the Writing Center, and you need to go to the Writing Center, but the final person who says this is ready to go needs to be a faculty member, and it has to do with subtle biases that are in every discipline. So please hear me on this. Did you have a question?
Oh, yeah. I was wondering about money.
Okay. All right. Let me talk about that. Okay. All right, here we go. First tip, if I can teach you how to not pay tuition, answer the following question. If you don't pay tuition, what costs more, in-state tuition or out-of-state tuition? What's 0 times a real number? 0. Okay, good. So stop doing that in-state, out-of-state thing. That's keeping you from building the right list of schools. If you don't pay tuition, what costs more, private school or public school? Then you need a mix of public and private. So you're hearing me on this, okay? If you're going to look nationwide, don't be falsely thinking you're going to pay tuition. PhD students don't pay tuition, okay? So one of the things some of you need to do is decide to quit fooling around and go for the PhD. By asking yourself, by trying to save money, you're costing yourself money, okay? So think about that. The other people who do not pay tuition are A-list students who apply to B-tier schools. Why? Those schools are buying increased rankings. So, you could have gotten into Harvard Medical School, but here I am at Tulane Medical School, and we're going to give you a free ride. Okay, so I'm rising in the rankings by giving away tuition. You with me on this? Okay, next, let's talk about other people who do not pay tuition. People with assistantships do not pay tuition. So you know about some of the assistantships, like teaching assistantships, but there are literally thousands of assistantships on every major university campus. So part of applying to graduate school is to ask that grad program, when and how do you choose your graduate assistants, and what do I need to do to get one? okay? You want a graduate assistantship. There's all kinds. Don't think just teaching assistantship. Tons of different ones. I'll give you an example. I know some of them are not very academic. A guy who was the audiovisual technician for a new building, and he said, everything works in this building, and the faculty know how to make it work. I don't have any duties at all. I am paid 20 hours a week to sit in a windowless room and do my schoolwork. All my schoolwork is done in this room, and I get paid, and I have a waiver of tuition. That's an assistantship. It's a full waiver of tuition plus a stipend in return for a part-time job. That's the way to look at them. They're different. You have to find out how they differ. I'm going kind of fast because I'm supposed to break for Q&A. Next is scholarships, which are not called scholarships. Oh, ask me about financial aid in just a moment. They're not called scholarships at the graduate level. They're called grants and fellowships. They just don't use that term scholarships very much. Hot tip. If you're in STEM, you're expected to apply for 3 or 4 scholarships as part of applying to graduate school. And if you don't, you're considered to be a dud, okay? So if you have great grades and great scores and you don't apply for third-party scholarships in STEM, you're considered to be a dud. So I need you to be applying for them. I'm going to give you a list of resources. UCLA has on their website a big, huge, massive database of these scholarships. And you find it by Googling UCLA and then the acronym GRAPES, all caps, GRAPES, GRAPES. That database is free and open to all students. It's a fantastic resource. They're going to close it up someday, but they don't so far. So UCLA GRAPES. Next, finaid.org. That's FINAID, finaid.org. Next, a book called The Best Scholarships for the Best Students. Fantastic book written by me. No, I wrote it with 2 other people that were better than I. The Best Scholarships for the Best Students. It's a book of portals. It's not a book of scholarships. It's a book of portals. And each portal could have gazillions of awards. So you're going to apply for 3 or 4 third-party scholarships. Those of you that are applying this year, that's one of the things you need to do tonight is go home, Google UCLA GRAPES. Those of you in the humanities, there's a book called Funding Your Humanities PhD. Funding Your Humanities PhD. That's an Amazon book. It's $4.95, worth every penny. It's only an e-version. There is no written book available. It was written by a faculty member. I met him. He's got it. It's a fantastic book. So those are a few funding sources. Did you have a question? Financial aid at the graduate level means loans. Never ask about financial aid because you just asked for a loan. So if you say, what kind of financial aid do you have? You just asked for a loan, and they will send you to the financial aid officer, and she's a loan officer. She's like a drug pusher for money. She's got one tool to solve all problems with, and if you go down and sit with her, she will loan you $20,500 a year, and you're going to be deep in debt really fast. Never talk to her. If they say, would you like to meet the financial aid officer? You say, I would rather die first. I want to go to grad school for free. I had a friend, listen to this, okay? She got into USC with no funding for the PhD. She borrowed her way through the first semester. She said, I had no plan for the second semester. When she got to USC, she haunted the faculty. And by the way, this was in higher ed administration, which is often not fully funded. So she haunted the faculty. Dr. Wilson, do you have anything I could do for you? I'll check back tomorrow. Dr. Johnson, was there anything, I watched your pickup on the way up to this meeting. Do you have anything I can do for you? She said by the end of the first semester, she had 5 revenue streams. She saved money while she was in the PhD program, didn't pay for anything after the first semester. With the money that she saved while she was in the PhD program, she had enough for a down payment, and she bought a house. And with a house and a PhD, she was able to attract a husband. I saw him. He's real. Okay? One more thing. When you're filling out these applications, you guys, a friend of mine, she was filling out an application to NYU, and she comes to this screen, and it said, what forms of funding and support would you like to be considered for? And she told me it was getting near the deadline. I didn't want to look all this stuff up. She said, I just checked everything. And she won something called Faculty Scholar. So the entire application process was to check that box. What was the value of that thing? $100,000. It was 2 years of a waiver of tuition and $30,000 divided 15 grand first year, 15 grand the second year. The entire application procedure was to check the box. So my recommendation to you, write this down, check the box. I want to bring up something about assistantships, and then we're going straight into Q&A. It's not the best students who get assistantships. It's the students who bug the faculty a little bit, okay? I'm going to be honest with you. It's not the best. Here's the best student we have, but she's not bugging us. So we're going to give the assistantship to this guy because he's seen her every day. He came in here last week and he said, hey, you know that person that you have at the front desk that's supposed to be watching the front desk? She's like late every day, okay? I've been here 3 times this week. I haven't seen her. I heard people don't even like her. I heard her tires were slashed. I think you should give that assignment to me because I am reliable and I have been here. I don't know what her problem is. Okay, that's who gets assistantships. You've got to be in faculty faces a tiny little bit to get these things. Oh, and one more thing, and then we are going to Q&A. If you're invited to anything in the spring, it's not optional. If you're invited to a reception, a meeting, a walkthrough, a tour, a meet and greet, anything in the spring, if you skip it, you just gave away your funding. So you must go. A friend called me up. He said, Don, my wife is due to have a baby right in the middle of meet and greet season. I said, Scott, your wife will have other babies. You cannot skip meet and greet season. So if you're invited in the spring, you'll go. Take your wife with you. Okay, Q&A.
What are the statistics and what are your recommendations for anyone who might plan on taking a gap year before applying to grad school?
Okay. I don't love gap years because gap years become gap decades, become the rest of your life. And I'm not trying to be critical. I'm just trying to tell you.
I asked the question. I'm just looking for information.
Okay. I don't love them. I don't.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't because I mean, I don't. Yeah.
What do you do if a program goes between like psychology and the business school, organizational behavior, for instance? Will either be run out of the psychology department or MBA.
So what's the question in there?
How do you just tailor each application to each one?
Yeah, you apply to each one. You tailor it to what they say about themselves online.
Okay.
And that's what you do. Yeah, okay. I wouldn't view it as a problem. Yes, can you use the mic? Because we're filming this for posterity.
Woohoo! Sorry. So my question is those for post-bac students?
Yeah.
I'm finally figuring out where I need to go, and I do need to go to graduate school.
Yeah.
And I haven't been in contact with faculty members, maybe for at least 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
Your suggestions as to, I've already got my letters of recommendations from 2 people already, so I'm kind of going outside the norm.
What's your field?
It's actually vocational rehabilitation counseling with equine therapy.
Okay, and so so what's your question exactly? Do you need another recommender? Or?
Well, no, I have a recommendation from the therapy ranch that I'm at this point in time.
That's great.
The other is getting the teacher, they want at least an institutional.
I would look for one professor and then one from the Equine Center and then the other one's a toss-up.
Okay. I mean, you didn't talk about post-bac students that are, continuing on education.
Yeah, all of you can change your record by taking courses after you graduate, because it becomes your post-baccalaureate GPA. So if you have a really bad GPA, one of the things you can do is graduate, take 4 or 5 courses in sociology, make an A in every one of them, and now you have a post-baccalaureate GPA of 4.0. Are you with me on this? And so it's a way of showing direction and newfound seriousness. So it's good for both of those.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. Can you use the mic?
She asked about taking a break.
Yeah.
But I have something similar, but the point being that if I'm finding it's too late to do all of this by now, will there be a big difference if I do it for the next round?
Well, the next round is next year. It's not next semester, it's next year.
Right.
And so I would.
That starts when? 2016? I mean, 2016.
Are you looking at 2016 or 2017?
20,
The problem is,
2017.
I want to encourage all of you that think you want to do this, just do it. Do it in the next 6 weeks because, and especially if you're after a master's, because those are like 8 and 15 weeks away. I mean, they're way out there. But even if you're applying for PhDs with a December 15th date, you have enough time to do this if you'll make it your top priority. That's all you got to do, make it your top priority. So it's time to quit the side job that you got that's not any good anyway, where they're not treating you right. Go in and quit tomorrow. And if you have a spouse that's a lot of trouble, just go sit down with them and say, you know what, I'll see you at Christmas. Okay, I got something I got to take care of, okay? You're not going to see me anymore, okay? I better not find anybody else around here I don't know. And get it done. Get it done because you do have enough time to get it done, you guys. You do. But you don't have time to wait even a week. You gotta leave this room and say, I'm doing this year. And you have enough time. You do, I promise.
So you were saying, like, for public policy and such, we shouldn't list the name of the teachers in the...
No, for the professional schools, which I named, I talk about the fit of the curriculum. So either they have a quant approach, or they're big on social justice, or maybe everybody does an internship in Washington, D.C. Whatever they specialize in, you have to address that in your essay and talk about how that matches your interests. All of you match yourself to the grad school, not the other way around. The grad schools are not going to take you and let you do whatever you want. That's actually a not very good way to approach it. So you talk about how what they do, you're ready to embrace wholeheartedly. Oh, here it is. Can you catch this? Are you sure?
Yeah.
I bet you could.
I don't think so. So I'm applying to communications master's programs, and I was planning on doing a mix of academic and professional recommendations. Would that be beneficial to me?
Yeah,
or
it does.
Simply...
There's the professional schools, business, law, medicine, and then that list, you can use a mix of professional recommenders and academic recommenders. If there's no academic recommenders, it makes them nervous. So you at least have to have one. All of you will waive your rights to review the letters of recommendation, because if you don't waive your rights, some of the grad schools will not distribute the letters and all of them will discount them. If you're worried about what a faculty member will say about you, ask them, hey, Dr. Wilson, would you be comfortable sharing the letter with me for my files? I'd just like to keep it for my files if that's okay with you. Some faculty will say, no, that's not how this works. But a lot of faculty will say, yeah, sure, I'll give it to you. And then you'll know what they say. You can't change it, but you at least know. Did you have a question?
I actually have two. One is you were mentioning that the faculty names and the fit.
Yeah.
You said that it was only applicable to PhD programs. Is it also applicable to masters?
It depends on the masters. It's
Okay.
mostly for PhD programs. What masters are you interested in?
Communication disorders.
You could mention some faculty as long as you say you were impressed with their work, you read their article, but that's a little bit different than saying, I want to work with Dr. Johnson, I want to go into her lab and work with her for 5 years. It's a little bit different. I think it's okay to mention their names and how that's what got you interested in their program, for example.
Okay. And then the other question was, you were talking about location, and to address it in the letter, almost all of the schools that I'm applying to are in the southern United States and southeastern, and I grew up there. Is that something, that anecdotal
Yeah,
information?
that's perfect.
Okay.
I have family there, I vacation there, my grandmother's from there, my people are from there.
Right.
I love the SEC. I'm joking because actually, I'll tell you how to not get admitted. Oh, I can't wait to continue my studies at the University of Colorado at Boulder. I love to ski. You just got rejected. So you have to do it right. You're absolutely right. I'm making jokes, but it's actually hard to get just right. Over here and then here.
You mentioned a lot about applying nationally. Do you have any recommendations on internationally, like Canada, or any thoughts about that?
Germany just decided to pay non-citizens to get graduate degrees in their country. So that's all I have for you.
All right. Thank you.
That's. Yeah, okay. Even if all the coursework is in English? Okay, all right. And then here, right here.
So if you know that there's like I have a particular researcher whose research I'm interested in, and he's an adjunct professor at the U of O. I don't have any contact with him now, obviously. If I wanted to try and get in contact with him about his, like, how would you go about that, or is it beneficial for applications to grad schools?
You've asked a question that has some complications in it. Adjunct professors cannot supervise doctoral students.
Well, yeah, I'm talking more bigger picture. Like he's the only one. I'm interested in eating disorder prevention in particular, and he's kind of the only person right now that has anything empirically supported within that. So I'm thinking more like grander.
But he's an adjunct professor?
He's an adjunct professor but he works at the Oregon Research Institute down in Eugene, which is also where the school is at.
I'd tell him you're coming. Dr. Wilson, I will be on campus next Wednesday. I would like to meet with you briefly. I've checked your class schedule, and I see that you get out at 2 o'clock.
So I guess my question is, it is acceptable for us to approach these people and try and, like,
Tell them you're coming, yeah. And I see from the security cameras that you carry a lot of stuff back to your office. I could meet you at 2 o'clock and help you carry that stuff back to your office, and we could discuss the graduate program along the way. Okay. I will have already fed your cat.
Thank you.
No, visiting is great, you guys. Visiting is great, and it settles issues. If you're going inside Oregon, get in your car and go sit down in their offices and tell them you're coming. Tell them you just want a moment of their time to discuss the program.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you had any specific advice to medical school applications.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. It has to do with the calendar. Yeah, you want to apply in the first 10 days of June, even if you have to wait a whole year to do it. Because of this research project that was just done at Washington University in St. Louis, which has the highest percentage of pre-meds in the country. The majority of their incoming freshmen are all pre-med. And so they did an analysis, reverse engineered their success patterns, and found out that when the student applied was second only to their GPA in determining whether they got into their first choice medical school. So you will apply in the first 10 days of June, even if you have to wait a whole year to do it. So if you're traditional 1, 2, 3, 4, in April of the junior year, you take the MCAT and you write your essay and you get your letters and everything ready to go, and you drop them in the first 10 days of June. Next tip for med, and I was not joking when I say you have to talk about that you have exposure to regular people, working class people, immigrants, non-English first, because if you don't, you're not getting into medical school anymore. They changed the criteria, and so it's absolutely, you have to prove this. You can't say, I'm interested in all types of people. No, you have to say, I have touched a truck driver this week. And then one more thing, I'm not picking on you, am I? And one more thing, bodily fluids. Okay, so you want to actually have an experience with bodily fluids, because there's two types of clinical exposure: the people who read to cancer victims and the people who mop up bodily fluids. So the most common sentence in applications to medical school is some version of, I always wanted to be a doctor because I like science and I want to help people. But people in medical school admissions hate that sentence because it's a cliche. They see it 25 times before breakfast every day. And some of them will say things like this, they have not always existed, so they're proposing an ontological impossibility right in their opening phrase. So they can be a little bit picky. But another student wrote, and this is, you guys, do not write shocking stuff just to be shocking, okay? But he wrote, when the old man urinated on my leg, it ran down my pants and into my shoe. In my opinion, that's too shock factor. But he pulled it off, because here was his whole sentence, paragraph. When the old man urinated on my leg, it ran down my pants and into my shoe. But I could not let go of him as I was helping to move him from a wheelchair onto the bed. That's when I first realized that medicine was not going to be starched white lab coats and every problem solved in 50 minutes like an undergraduate chemistry demonstration. And that's when I realized that medicine was not going to be about the perquisites of medicine like golf at 4 for my uncle the dermatologist. That's when I first realized that medicine was going to be about people, real people, and their sometimes very messy problems. Put some bodily fluids in there. Thank you all very much, and get at it, okay?